Forgive me if this is a bit rough, I'm just winging this. So the first time I ever cosplayed as Jason Voorhees was all the way back in 2016. I was in high school at the time, I had just gotten into horror, and I threw together a quick costume with a cheap hockey mask I got on Amazon, some thrifted clothes, and a generic zombie mask. And I wore that at that year's Fan Expo Boston, formerly known as Boston Comic Con. And in spite of the fact that the costume wasn't particularly great, everyone who saw it still seemed to enjoy it. I took a ton of pictures, and I just had enough fun that I decided to keep the ball rolling. So with that original costume as a base, as the years went on, I just started slowly improving it. The first thing I did was I just weathered the clothes I already had. Once I was able to save up enough money, I started to buy pieces from independent artists, people who are way more talented than me and make way better costumes than I could ever hope to. And truth be told, this is a video that I wanted to make for quite a while during that entire process. So one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube back when I first started this, and still today, is people creating Jason costumes, whether that be ones that they make themselves or ones that they buy, or kind of a hybrid of the two like mine ended up being. However, the reason I never made it up until now is I always felt like there was some part of the costume that could be improved, that there was always something that was temporary, that I had it and I was like, okay, this is good enough for now, but I have every intention to swap this out in the future. So if I ever did make a video on it, it would pretty much become outdated relatively quickly after. However, nearly 10 years since I started cosplaying as Jason, it being January 2026 now, I think I've finally reached a point where I am ready to call it done, and I could not be happier with how it looks. So honestly, I'm pretty stoked to finally be able to make this video. You know, those videos really got me into this as a hobby, and in a way, I hope that this kind of helps pay it forward, and someone watches this and is like, hey, that's a half-decent costume, I kind of want to make that. Now, my costume is based on Jason's design in the 2003 film Freddy vs. Jason. There's a little bit of bias. That movie is the movie that got me into horror, and I just absolutely love Jason's design. I do hesitate to call this a fully screen accurate costume because I'll fully admit it's not. There are some deviations here and there, things that I did intentionally that I just thought looked better on me personally. A lot of these pieces were created by independent artists, and when I get to those pieces, I will try to credit them best I can, but apologies in advance if any of them do see this. I'm probably going to mispronounce at least someone's name. I will try my best. Also, I'm sure there's going to be questions in regards to the price of this costume, and I am hesitant to give you a breakdown of how much every piece cost, just because a lot of these, again, are made by independent artists, and I don't know if they're still selling them for the same price that I bought them, and I would rather not send anyone to them under the expectation that they're going to get a certain item at a certain price, be that higher or lower. However, I will be upfront in saying that the entire costume combined cost me a little over $1,600, which I know is an astronomical number, and a lot of people are probably assuming that I am terrible with money, which I am. But this is something that I love doing. This is something that makes me happy, something I'm passionate about. Jason Voorhees is my favorite fictional character, probably ever at this point. And I wanted to have a nice high-end costume that I could go to conventions with, take pictures and make fan films with. And to anyone out there who's considering getting into Jason cosplaying and sees that as a very intimidating number, again, I want to remind you that that's something I worked up to. That very first Jason costume back in 2016 probably cost me around 60 bucks. So without further ado, I'm going to go through every single component that makes up this costume. I'm going to start with the boots and then end on the hockey mask, because least most interesting. Now, starting off with the boots, these are boots that I just bought off Amazon. I had never seen these on Amazon until, give or take, probably 3 or 4 months ago is when I started to see these ones pop up. Jason in Freddy vs. Jason does wear platform boots, but they were custom made for the production. They're not an actual boot that you could go out and buy. One thing I've learned over the years of doing this is the boots are the biggest pain in the ass, because I've tried platform boots that are too tall, that are too short, that are uncomfortable. I've had a pair disintegrate on me after walking around in the convention space for a day. Unfortunately, the listing that I bought these from is no longer available. This was the picture that they used, and I've seen a couple of different listings use these same pictures. I'm not sure it's the same one, but it might be worth looking into. But yeah, I really dig the look of these. These are probably the best boots that I've used for this Jason costume so far. They are platform, but they're not ridiculously tall platforms. They don't make me look like I'm a member of KISS. If I were smarter, I would have grabbed measuring tape. I'm gonna ballpark that it's probably around 2 to 3 inches at the heeled platform of these, so just tall enough to look intimidating, but not tall enough to look completely ridiculous. And I'm not sure how well it picks up on camera, but I did try to weather these best I could. First, I just beat the hell out of them with a hammer, some sandpaper, a door file, and then I started dabbing on little bits of spray paint, acrylic paint, just to make them dirty and grungy. Again, not sure how well it picks up on camera, but I think they came out half decent. I'm pretty proud of how they came out, and I think they look great with the full costume. Next up are the pants. Now, these are not screen accurate by any stretch of the imagination. If memory serves, Ken Kersinger said he wore what he described as sweatpants. I have tried several times over the many years I've been doing this to find a pair of sweatpants that looked good, that looked proportional with the rest of the costume, and maybe I'm just super unlucky, but every time I would cut the bottoms off of the legs and try to weather them, it would always end up with a very tapered look, and it just kind of threw the balance of the whole costume off. So these are just a pair of Dickies work pants. They're just regular black. I doubt that they're vintage. I got these at a Goodwill for a couple bucks. They fit great. I love how they look. I dig the little bit of texture that it adds to the bottom half of the costume. And again, I'm not sure how well these picks up on camera, but I did try to weather, especially the bottom of these a little bit. Covered them in paint and obviously tore the hell out of the bottoms. Small side note, I absolutely suck at making my own costumes and weathering and all that shit. I usually end up fucking it up royally, so the fact that this and any of the other pieces that I made personally look even half decent is a small miracle. Yeah, I wish there was a little bit more to say on these, but I mean, it's just a standard black pair of pants that I tried to weather the best I could. They're not really particularly special. Honestly, the pants are the most nondescript part of the costume when you watch the movie. So even though these aren't screen accurate, I think this looks just as good. So next up is the blue undershirt. Now this, I think you can see, this is the color that I started with. I intentionally chose one that was a lighter blue and not navy. And the reason I did that is because the hockey mask is a much more vibrant yellow, whereas the rest of the wardrobe is a very muted, dark, desaturated color. And I thought that having this still read as blue when the full costume is on would help balance out the colors. And you know, I think it does. And yeah, much like the pants, I wish there was more to say on this, but it is truthfully exactly what it looks like. It is just a blue t-shirt that I covered in paint and kind of just cut the hell out of. Given that this is the bottommost layer of clothing, I only ever did the front, and I only kind of just weathered towards the top, and I did a bit towards the bottom as well. Just the spots that you kind of see peeking out, and then, you know, there's some paint throughout so that it isn't this vibrant blue peeking out through the holes of the gray sweatshirt, which I guess I'll talk about next. And this is the gray sweatshirt. This was just a generic gray undershirt that I got off Amazon. I forget if I said I got the t-shirt off Amazon too. And it's the same process as the boots, as the pants, and as the t-shirt. It's just paint and a knife or a razor or sandpaper. Whatever would make it look the most beat up and damaged and waterlogged. Much like the t-shirt, this is not screen accurate weathering. I think when I started off, I put holes in the same spots as the screen used prop, but I think by the end of it I actually weathered this a little bit more heavily than the actual screen used shirt. And the reason that I did that was to better match the weathering of the burlap jacket that I have, which is just an absolute tattered mess, and I love it. The last thing of note with this is I did cut the sleeves off just to make it easier to wear. This is one of 4 different layers, including an undershirt that I have on when I'm wearing this full costume, and anything to make it a little bit easier to wear goes a long way, and once everything's on, you'd never notice. Alright, so debatably the most divisive part of this Jason's design, and truth be told, what might be my favorite part of it, this is Jason's burlap jacket. There's the back of it. It's hard to get it all in frame here. And then we got, I'm trying my best here. Side 1. Side 2. Now this I did not make. I bought this off a seller on Etsy by the name of Horror Effects Designs. His name is Jeremy. I'm unaware of his last name. And I mean, needless to say, he knocked this out of the fucking park. This is incredible. I mean, in my humble opinion, the burlap jacket is what makes or breaks the Freddy vs. Jason look, and when I'm wearing this, I feel like I walked straight off the set of the movie. This might be a little easier to show it off, but the fit is absolutely phenomenal. This is a size 4XL. I'm a bit on the bigger side, and so it's not out of the question that I buy things and they end up being too small, but this fits absolutely perfectly. And again, I feel like I walked straight off the set of the movie when I'm wearing this. Again, I could not recommend Horror Effects Designs enough. And it's not just the Freddy vs. Jason look that he does. I believe he also does a part 3. There might be another Jason design is there as well. Honestly, his entire shop is absolutely filled with beautiful artwork like this. This thing is absolutely phenomenal. This is a must-have, in my opinion, for anyone doing this look. It won't be the last thing that I buy from him, and it actually won't even be the last thing that I talk about in this video. Debatably, the most boring part of the costume is the gloves. Now, these are leather gauntlet gloves, and these were also made by Jeremy over at Horror Effects Designs. And as you can plainly see, these things have been weathered to hell and back. There's holes, there's grime, there's dirt. And I know you can kind of see my hand peeking through I've done full photo shoots in this costume, and in action you would never actually see that. I mean, half the time I'm holding Machete with this hand, so. Again, not much to say on these. They are just a pair of weathered black gauntlet gloves, but they have been weathered to perfection. And again, Horror Effects Designs on Etsy. Could not recommend him enough. He makes incredible work. All right, next up is the hood. Now this I got off of, and I apologize in advance again, Kyle Huculuk. This is how it's spelled. Now this is the second silicone hood that I've got off of Kyle in the past. I've gotten a Part 4 full silicone mask a couple years ago. That thing was absolutely phenomenal, straight out of the movie, and this one here is no different. I mean, the paint, the work, this does have hair. When I first got it, it did have a much larger patch of hair back here, but I put this thing through hell. Do a little 360 turning around here, but yeah, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. The sculpt, the paint, everything about it. I've owned many silicone masks over the years, and my understanding is I have a larger head. I think it's probably around 24-25 inches. This thing fits me better than any silicone hood I have ever bought in my life. This thing just slips on like a glove, and once it's on, it's incredibly comfortable. I could spend hours in this thing. Again, another must-buy in my opinion for anyone doing the Freddy vs. Jason look, or frankly any Jason look in general. I know Kyle does a handful of the other designs. I think he might even do non-Jason characters as well. I believe he's done Cropsy from The Burning, which is pretty fucking sweet. Very underrated slasher in my opinion. Yeah, one last good look at it there. Absolutely fucking gorgeous. All right, next up we got the hockey mask. Now this was made by Josh Ludman over at Beyond Disgusting Studios, and for those who don't know, the Freddy vs. Jason hockey mask that Josh offers is actually 3D scanned off of a first generation pull from the movie mold. So frankly, it just doesn't get any better than this. I mean, other than having one of those first generation pulls, which good luck finding one of those. And much like everything else that I have been talking about in this video, absolutely gorgeous, knocked it out of the park. I've owned many different Jason masks over the years, and maybe it's just the fact that this is screen accurate giving me a bit of a placebo effect here, but I honestly think, regardless of that fact, that this might be the best one I've ever owned. Now this is actually the second mask that I bought from Beyond Disgusting Studios. Back in 2019, I bought the hockey mask inspired by the last shot of Freddy vs. Jason, where he's got all that battle damage. That mask was absolutely phenomenal. I'm kind of sad that I no longer have it anymore. I do plan on getting it again in the future. But it's glad to see that the quality, if anything, has only gone up, because this is incredible. Again, not to sound like a broken record, but I truly think this is a definite must-get for the Freddy vs. Jason look. And while I'm thinking of it, I know that there are a lot of cosplayers out there that do the Freddy vs. Jason look that will put a false eye here to represent that lazy eye. A very divisive part of Jason's design in Freddy vs. Jason. A lot of people don't like that you can see his eyes through the mask, and I would tend to agree. I do like Jason better when it is just total black. And I also see a lot of people, when they want to do the full blackout eyes look, they will just put mesh on the inside. Now, I do something slightly different. I actually wear a black morph suit mask underneath the silicone hood. I have a lot of hair, so it's usually pretty difficult for me to put on any kind of mask. I need a hairnet in some way, shape, or form, or a balaclava. So just going with a black morph suit mask under everything kills two birds with one stone and lets me put the mask on a lot easier, and it gives you that black void behind these eyes. Last but not least is the Machete. Now this was made by, and again, I'm so sorry, Jordan Dufour? Jordan over at Horror School Customs. This is the only piece of this entire costume that I did not buy last year. I think I bought this 2 or 3 years ago, and it is, I mean, this is perfect. Now, I believe this thing, again, if I were smarter, I would have grabbed the measuring tape, is around 30 inches, give or take. It is made completely of metal, I think aluminum, but I could be wrong on that, and is completely dull. So it is safe to handle, although I don't think they would ever let me into convention space with this. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. This thing is... And Jason has a very strange looking machete in Freddy vs. Jason, which I personally like. I look at this and I see this as definitively Jason's, like, you know, Freddy's got his glove and Jason's got his machete instead of some generic looking one. I bought a few things from Jordan over the years and he absolutely kills it every single time. This, no different, absolute perfection. I feel like I'm holding the movie prop. This is just the perfect representation of that machete, in my opinion. I would never even hope to replace this thing. This is my pride and joy. I mean, this whole costume is my pride and joy, but I mean, you get what I mean. And with that being the last of the individual pieces that make up this costume, Here's what everything looks like all put together.
Make them remember what they did to us, Jason. Kill them. They deserve to die, Jason. Make them suffer.
Again, I could not be happier with how the final result looks. This thing is mean, it is intimidating, and it's just fucking awesome. I hope this was half as interesting or as informative as I really hope it was. This is not scripted. I have just been rambling here for an hour. I am doing more photo shoots with this. I'm not sure if behind the scenes of those would be of any interest to anyone. If so, let me know. I am also looking towards making a 1974 Leatherface costume, if it wasn't already obvious. That's my other love. And I'm sure once that's done, I will make a very similar video to this, showing off that costume. If any of that is of interest, let me know. And yeah, that about covers everything. I hope this was enjoyable.